All right. That's all I got on that topic. Who's next? Jump
Guns.
in. Guns. All right, go.
Guns.
Guns.
Beto. Finally, a higher level candidate has confirmed what the right has believed all along. They do want our guns, and they are going to confiscate them, and he doesn't care what it is. And I'm so tired, like every other Second Amendment adherent, of this nonsense of buyback, because we didn't buy our guns from the government in the first place, but that's how they act. And I notice that none of them that are actually claiming to want to confiscate all of our guns, a la Australia and New Zealand, have said anything about, well, fine, we're going to pay for the guns, you're going to give them to us, but how are they going to go get them? If you've noticed, there are other several states in the unions that have made such bans, and the actual compliance ratio goes from a high of 15% down to about 2%. So I should have worn my shirt that says, I will not comply to this version of GrokTALK. Really, are they going to send the police? Are they going to send county sheriffs? Are they going to send state police? Because law enforcement really is a local environment to do, especially if half the police say, no, we believe that you are now breaking the Constitution, because the left has been playing the game with the word infringe for years. I think they will have finally crossed the line with this confiscation, and it may lead to a civil war. And all it takes is a couple of little incidents, which the right will turn into Waco, and then you're going to have a preference cascade going into play, where everybody says, they stood up, I should stand up. There's going to be blood in the left has said, anytime more gun freedom happens, there's going to be blood in the streets. No, there hasn't been, but there will be blood in the streets if they try to reduce them by confiscation.
We just posted a article this morning about, not this morning, yesterday morning, about New Zealand, which, we've reported on since the Christchurch massacres, when some commie eco-socialist nutbag purposefully used a rifle, a scary black rifle, to shoot up some mosques because he wanted to start a conversation that led to gun control in Western countries, specifically the United States. New Zealand did ban certain kinds of rifles and shotguns. They did then say, well, hey, we're going to do a buyback. And now they're proposing the next step, which we've all predicted, which is a gun registry, which of course is the precursor to getting the guns, because until you know where they are, you can't go out and find them. And of course, as you pointed out, Skip, the same number of people who have refused to turn their guns in New Zealand, which is extremely high. It's like 70 to 80, maybe even higher percentage of the gun owners who've refused to turn their guns in or send them in for the buyback program, are the same people who are probably not going to go, well, I'm going to register this weapon because you've asked me to. So again, we're to their question, and I think New Zealand, we need to keep watching, because they're on a fast track to get this done. And those socialist gun grabbers down there, they want those weapons. So to your question, how do the people of New Zealand deal with, and how does law enforcement go out and register or collect these weapons? And I think you're absolutely right. And I don't think the rural population of New Zealand is going to stand for it any more than the rural population of America would.
I don't think so either. Britain lost its guns slowly over a century until we got to the Dunblane massacre at a school, where one guy decided to shoot the place up and the government decided to ban practically all guns. It was a long, slow process. New Zealand is much more sparsely populated than the UK. If you're out in the sticks, you're out in the sticks, and you'd better have a gun for self-defense and for the defense of your family. I don't think these people are going to give them up. And I think the same attitude is going to take place here. If you bought the gun before anybody started counting, you ain't going to offer them up for counting. They're not going to get registered. They're just going to be in somebody's closet or gun safe somewhere tucked away, or distributed in different parts of the house, whatever. But they are not going to be obvious, and then
buried in the yard
where you can count. Well, and that too, and you can go out and buy those sealed tubes for burying in different parts of your yard as well. And just hope the police dogs don't know how to sniff out plastic bones. But it's absolutely right.
Oh, you've got a good point, Mike.
New Zealand, but New Zealand is trying to do this in quick time. And what the people are realizing equally in quick time is it's a really, really bad idea, and they're not going to play. And if they try and do all this in the space of not even a generation, but within a couple of years, I think that all the people that know the good reasons why they have guns are going to be very firm in resisting taking them away.
I just say, because I live next to Lake Winnipesaukee, that all of a sudden, if you were to fly a magnometer across the lake, there'd be a whole lot of spikes because of the accidents of, oh, I dropped my gun overboard. Now, they wouldn't say that, we also geolocated it and wrapped it up well in plastic bags for later fishing out, but that's another story. If they were smart, they'd put more pieces of metal in and go fishing with magnets instead of hooks. But the other thing is that I think a lot of Americans, especially those that are veterans, that have already steeled themselves to this, because if you remember, there was purportedly a letter written by over 2,000 special operations troops, former operations troops during the Obama administration, who said, if you do this, you won't be able to stop us. And I'll tell you, it would not be hard to stop the police, because what these leftists don't understand is that there is more of us. And if you put us into that same situation that the Redcoats did at the beginning genesis of this country, which their first act was to confiscate all weapons, you will find that the poor slobs that are sent to go to house will be followed back to their homes. And then the next day when they go out to confiscate more weapons, bad things are going to happen. This Cold War will get hot real quick. And they won't understand that their force, because I don't consider in this case Antifa to be large enough of a force, they will lose. I've already said, a lot of people have said, I'm wearing a shirt that says I will not comply. A lot of other people have said, I will not comply either. Our fellow citizens in other states aren't complying. They haven't gotten the message yet. And I see bad things happening if some of the idiots like Beto or any of the other of those presidential wannabes say, yes, we're going to take your guns. I don't care what soft, silky language they use, but the intent is to take the guns. We're all screwed.
I think here's a good question. I think a lot of people in law enforcement, obviously not police chiefs who run police chiefs associations in New Hampshire are a good example, but regular law enforcement, a lot of military, National Guard, they probably wouldn't buy into this. Some would, obviously, but not all. And it begs the question, who do the leftists find to go get the guns? Who's going to do it?
They don't. Well, the politicians won't, because they don't want to get their hands.
They're going to have to do it. Yeah, they're going to have to find people from out of area. You mentioned, was it the local police, is it the sheriff's department, or is it the state police? Maybe you can get the state police to go town to town, as long as it's not the towns that they live in. And this is also going to be really interesting. It's going to be where you sort the real law enforcement officers from the bullies in uniform. The ones that have any reverence at all for the Constitution are going to refuse to play, which is going to leave a reduced number to go house to house looking to get slaughtered.
Well, again, I'm going to basically say, even if it's the state police, the same tactics could be used. Years ago, I heard rumors that, during the last years of Obama, a lot of people on the right were saying, this is going to be it, this is where it's going to end. And I heard and was told a lot of different tactics that could be used, all of which are not going to be very fun for the other side, regardless. Because I think when Americans go to war, they go to war. I don't think the left understands the phrase, if you're going to kill the king, kill the king. and they wish to make us the virtual kings. Just look at what they're already doing now with the kinds of names that they've used to come after us at Granite Rock with over the decade plus that we've been involved with. Most of us just throw those words off. But most regular citizens, most normals, hate the idea of being called those names. We're being made to be seen as subhuman, not worth it. We are the problem that must be eliminated. Again,
I don't think they got the subhuman. Glad you said subhuman.
I deliberately use that word because we've seen this before in history in multiple countries. Because we are basically not worth it. Deplorables, irredeemables. I did have that post where I was called a name that was just about the worst that you can call a guy. And that was made to ostracize me. It's made to ostracize you, all the other normals that read Granite Rock or listen to this. There is a serious problem in this country when half the people won't even talk to the other. I've got a post to put up in a little bit out of the Seacoast area of just what putting a political sign on your lawn will do to you. They basically are trying to prep the battlefield as it is. And what they don't understand is that the usage of those words and trying to deny us humanity, at some point they don't understand the Scotch-Irish background of Americans and say, up yours, and it'll boomerang on them.
It will. And
I hate clean words, two letters and 5 letters, no 4-letter words.
Very nice.
No, and just stay the hell off the property of the individuals, because if you invade, you are a criminal.
Well, again, it comes back to that issue with them making you less than human. It was what they did to excuse slavery. It's what they do to justify abortion. And it's what they do to belittle us and make it legitimate to have their street thugs attack us and silence us and eventually to create laws that make that activity legal, which probably is the goal.
Just remember that federal laws are null and void in this area anyway. They're not within the remit of the constitutionally formed federal government. And besides, where I was going with this, and I think where Skip was going, the subhuman is what the Nazis used to label the Jews and what the Muslims used to label other races.
Well, it's the same. It's the supremacy ideology, which I talk about all the time. I lump it all together because people talk about right and left and they confuse Nazis and they try to call us that. And we know it's not true, but what you're really talking about is a supremacy ideology. You're talking about an ideology where you have one ruling class and everything they say and do is the law and everybody else is pretty much stuck, and they apply it to everybody. They apply it to, the communists did it, the Nazis did it. The Islamists do it. It's all the same thing. It's their way or the highway. You don't get to say what you want. You're not allowed to contradict them. It's a supremacy ideology. And they're all on the same side of the political spectrum for that reason, because of the way they choose to rule. So, they did call the Jews inhuman. They did call the blacks non-humans. They were animals. They did call babies are just lumps of tissue. It's like an appendix. It's all the same supremacy ideology. This means nothing to us, so we can do what we want with it. That's where they're putting us. That's how they're framing the narrative. They've been preparing this battle space for decades, and we've been reporting it for more than a decade. And it's not going to change until either they don't have the power for a certain number of years to prevent them from advancing this sort of thing, or something really awful and horrible happens, which we don't want.
No, we don't. But it's they hope for the best, but prepare for the worst.
Yeah. And did you read about it may even have been a congressman or a state rep in Texas, that when Beto said, "I'm coming for your AR-15, he said something to the effect that my AR-15 is ready for you, and his tweet got taken down in a hurry, but none of Beto's awful comments are ever taken down.
That's how it works.
No, and in fact, at some point during this broadcast, I hope that we also talk about Jan Schmidt and her attempted silencing of Granite Rock, because it's part and parcel of what we're talking about now.
GrokTV.